Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. So, today we are talking about the 3 levels of consciousness.
I'm excited.
Ooh, ah,
Ooh.
ooh.
All right. What are the 3 levels of consciousness, buddy?
They are the level of thinking. Wow, I should be right in front of my brain. Level of thinking. That's where we normally are functioning,
Okay.
always thinking, the wheel's always turning, caught up in that wheel of thinking.
Been
And
there.
then there's another common place that everybody goes, and that's dropping below the level of thinking. This is watching TV. This is drugs, illegal and legal drugs,
Okay.
alcohol, anything we use in an addictive manner, like shopping, eating, sex. In an addictive way. I mean,
Right.
of course, not all those things are bad, but we do have to shop, eat, and have sex, if at all possible. But,
and
but,
what's the,
but when
what's
we,
the third one? No,
uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So, but like if we do it in an addictive way, if we
Yeah.
do it as an escape from the level of thinking, then that's when it's dropping. We're
When
using it
you're
to drop
doing it
below the
mindlessly and like you're not in control of it.
right, and
Yeah.
it serves as an escape, so a respite from that constant thinking that we're in. So, and then the last level is rising above the level of thinking, which is where we're supposed to be, because like when we drop below the level of thinking, it's not natural for us to be less than ourselves, to need to dumb ourselves down from our normal, from a state that we're capable of, is just not normal. We're not supposed to be less than ourselves. So therefore there's negative repercussions because of that. We're doing something that's unnatural, to induce a vacation from our brain in an unhealthy way. So there are repercussions, and some of them are obvious. Some people, and addiction is one of those repercussions where it's obvious. It's like, um, you're addicted to the behavior. You're not in control of what you're doing. And it's not that we can never watch TV. I mean, whatever. It's it doesn't make us a bad person and unconscious if we actually watch something. Sometimes it's okay to get some entertainment. But again, if that's our escape, if it's like, think of it, if you go to work all day and your mind's constantly going, and you're just caught up in that level of thinking, and then you get out of work and you're running errands and you're doing this and you're doing that, so you're caught up in the level of thinking, and then you go and you have a couple drinks, or you sit there and watch TV, and then you go to bed, like that's your entire life, and you're never conscious, ever. Like you're never in control. You're never in the present moment. You're never in control of what you're doing. You're never, and this is how people wake up, after 20 years of a job that they don't like, or a marriage that is falling apart and they're not even aware it's falling apart, or that you wake up to the person next to you and you're like, who are you? I don't even know you anymore. There's we miss life is what happens when you're busy doing other things. And when you're constantly busy, in the game of incessant chatter in your brain, and then you fall into moments of unconsciousness just to escape that every once in a while, where you're not really aware of your life or what's going on around you. That's not it's not really a healthy existence. This is not what I would call the upper echelon of living.
So there's like 2 things with that, right? It's like, number 1, you have the the moments of like you have this thing that's causing unhappiness, right? So like you have a 9 to 5 job that you hate, right? So you're unhappy there. And then instead of doing anything about that unhappiness, or instead of, filling in your time with something that makes you happy, you and not that an escape can't make you happy, but it's the what you're saying, like when you're doing it at a subconscious level, when you're zoning out, when you have those drinks to unwind, or you're like, I'm just gonna go play video games till 3 o'clock in the morning, or I'm gonna hit the drive through and get like
Well,
2 meals, like when you're not being conscious about it and you're doing it to stop the pain of the thing that you don't like, then there's never a time for consciousness and moving forward.
right, and that's the tricky part, like you made you made a good point right there. You said that it's not that it can't be fun, like, but that's the problem, is people mistake a respite from suffering as joy. Like they actually think that, like if you ask somebody, that's sitting there playing mindless video games for 3 hours, do you enjoy playing video games? They're going to be like, oh my God, yes, I love playing video games.
Right.
Yeah, but you're not really enjoying playing video games that much. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a few people that really enjoy playing video games, and I don't mean to put down video games. I'm not a big video game guy. So to me, it seems like a good uh, example. But I want to be fair. I mean, there are some people who really like playing video games. And if you can do it mindfully and perhaps even make a living out of it, or it's your hobby and you're really cool. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people that do it just to escape, and they're to drop below the level of thinking, and they're not even aware of it. It's just the relief that they get from being in the incessant thinking. They mistake that relief for happiness.
Right.
And that's really, really sad. That's really, 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 really sad. That's one of the most sad things I've ever become aware of. Seriously.
No, I completely
It's,
agree.
it's like the fact that we suffer so much in humanity, that our existence sucks so bad that just to not be suffering, we mistake that for happiness.
Yep.
Not to be consciously suffering.
Yep.
We're still suffering. We just dumb ourselves down enough to not feel it. And we go, oh yeah, I love that.
And that's
Oh,
exactly so about so about your point about video games, like it's not the thing that's bad. It's how you're using it that's sad. Like
right.
it's the issue. And I do this, so I'm not judging anyone.
Well, I do it to
You know
some
what I
degree
mean?
too. Right. I
Like
do it to some
there's a
degree
level
too.
to which we all go there.
Yes.
And it's like there's a thing where if it's the thing that's fulfilling you, like you said, like if video games are your hobby, your passion, your job, all of that stuff, if that's the thing that's fulfilling you,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Or if you spend every day doing fulfilling work, and like if you're happy in your job, you're happy in your life, you're happy with your family, and this is a hobby that you're
Right.
doing, and or you
And you get some enjoyment out of it, then
and you
cool.
love all of that stuff, and then you want to zone out and watch Game of Thrones or a football game, awesome,
Right.
perfect,
Absolutely.
great. But if you're like, I've had a really rough day, I'm gonna have 3 glasses of wine and watch the entirety of The Office again, which like I've seen that show 9,000 times. The like then you got to look at like what you're doing.
Right. And that's what you need to do, is you need to slow down and really look and because at first glance, what our ego wants to do is defend our behavior. I mean, that's, rule one. So as soon as you say this, our first instinct is our mind is taking in the information going, hey, our escape is being threatened. It's being challenged by Glenn. Defend it. So, the first instinct is to go, no, I really like that. So you have to get beyond that and be able to be honest with yourself. This is if you want a happier life, there's three things. If you want to change, there's three things necessary: open-mindedness, honesty, and willingness. Well, now's the time for honesty. You need to slow down, stop defending, and really get honest. And if you really look at what you're doing, I mean, like I said, I do it. So I did it last night. Like I did. I was sitting there, but I did it consciously. I had, I don't know, let's say like 4 hours or something last night. And I was like, okay, I technically don't have anything to do that needs to be done in the next 4 hours. How do I want to spend that? It's like, because I mean, I'll work sometimes when I'm not, in not normal hours. I mean, that's part of having your own business. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. No, I've kind of had a lot going on recently. I was moving all weekend. I'm a little bit tired, a little bit groggy, not sure why. I think I just want to relax and watch a couple movies. It's like, well, that's dumbing down. Yes, I would like to dumb down for a little while tonight. Okay, and I did. But at least it's making a conscious decision to do it. The danger is when you're doing it consistently, constantly, unconsciously, and there's no consciousness in your life. There's no space for consciousness in your life. You just oscillate in between, the level of thinking and dumbing yourself down, the level of thinking and dumbing yourself down. If you just oscillate between those two, there's going to be very little positive movement in your life, because you're not living on purpose. You're not living consciously. You're not looking around and going, geez, are there things in life that I would like to change? What would that look like? How can I accomplish it? Maybe I should put some energy towards it. Is like, you're just meandering aimlessly, and it's not that you need to live consciously, 14 hours a day and then sleep, and then live consciously 14 hours a day and then sleep. That's the other thing our ego does, to defend itself. It's go, well, what am I supposed to do? Like just, be some Zen Buddhist walking around meditating all day and just being present. That nothing will ever get done. I have a job to go to, I like my hobbies. It's like, no, you don't need to stop doing any of that stuff. It's just starting to bring in moments of consciousness. And sometimes they're literally moments. Like Eckhart Tolle talks about using one conscious breath. One conscious breath. That's it. Just, I'm going to breathe in and breathe out. That's it. That's enough. Then you can, if you do that sporadically through your day, or I like doing like 4, 7, 8 breaths. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, release for 8. Do that a couple times throughout the day. It's just to stop. That wheel is incessantly spinning. And if when you do those things, it stops it, because you're rising above the level of thinking, and it just stops that incessant thinking. Then it's momentum. If that wheel spins, basically, like it's basically spinning even when you drop below the level of thinking, because it's still spinning. You just aren't paying attention to it. You're being distracted from the fact that it's still spinning. When you rise above it, you actually stop it. So it slows the momentum. If it spins for 14 years, that builds up a lot of momentum, but if you stop it 5 times a day, even for a second, that has very impressive effects. It slows your thinking down. It puts you in control of your mind. You can be in situations where something overtakes you for a minute and you get shocked and you go, oh my God, oh, wait a minute. All right, just slow down for a minute. How should I handle this? And you can handle situations better because you can actually stop your brain when you tell it to, as opposed to it just constantly running.
Um, this is a. I'm just gonna tell the story. Um, this has been, I don't know when this podcast is going to go out, but it's the end of January right now, getting to the end of January. And January has been a ridiculously difficult month for me. Ridiculously difficult. Just to give the broad strokes of it, both of my parents have been in the hospital at the same time, different places. They didn't know that the other one was in they're together and everything, but like it's bad, like very bad. Like one of my parents was on life support and the other one didn't know what was going on. Like and it's starting to look up now, but it's so when I say it's been a hell of a month, like it's been bad, right, Glenn?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been full, man. You
yeah.
have had, your plate is overflowing.
And so for the first bit of it, right, when like you're in that shock and you didn't know what to, and like I'm completely overwhelmed by this,
Hmm.
I wanted to dumb down. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go below the level of thinking
Yeah.
because that is what makes sense. Like you're miserable, your life is falling apart, things are bad. Dumb
Escape.
escape, dumb this down. I started rewatching The Office, like I said. I wanted to just play video games and not do anything for a bit. I I wanted to zone out and not think about stuff, not think about anything. And the level of anxiety that caused to dumb down, because your brain, like you said, is still going on
Hmm.
those things, even though you're dumbing down, even though you're trying to zone out and not pay attention to stuff. Like I Allie, my best friend Allie, she was like, let's watch a movie, and we're watching a movie, and it's really nice. It's a funny movie. It was Long Shot with Seth Rogen. Like it's a funny movie. And halfway through the movie, like every time there's a quiet spot, I'm like, oh God, everything's going terrible right now. You know what I mean? Like all of
Yeah,
the
because you
thoughts.
don't actually get the break that you're seeking. You
Right.
you you don't recover there. You
Yep.
can't recover below
Yep.
the level of thinking. It's just you dumb it down and ignore it. But like you said, it's still going. So there's no recovery period.
So at some point, very quickly, I decided that this would be a better time and a better opportunity when there was nothing that I could control in the situations that I was in, that it would be a better use of my time to try to do constructive thinking about work and about business and about business building and talking to people and doing all of the things that I could control in this positive way that could make me happy in a different direction. And it was, using that cognitive function that I had instead of zoning out and trying to avoid my problems. I was going to address the situations that I was in, but when I wasn't addressing the situations I was in, I was going to try to do something positive for myself instead.
Right.
And I can't tell you how much that has saved me in the last 2-3 weeks. Like
And
the
it's so to be specific,
yeah,
like the taking the positive action is good. It's a better use of your time and it can make you feel a little bit better,
but I
which
didn't use
is
it as an escape though.
right. So, I mean, because there's workaholics.
Yeah.
So, we have, just because our intentions are good, we have to be careful. But I think, like the piece that, see, what I'm talking about with the rising above the level of thinking came when you stopped for a minute and said, I'm not going to dumb myself down and escape. I'm going to try to, like, at the moment you were going, what should I try to do? Put my energy towards positive things, things I can benefit from, that can help my life. When you were that when that thought process was going on, that was you above the level of thinking. That was you stopping, looking at your life, saying, what's going to be healthy for me at this particular moment? That's rising above the level of thinking. And then you consciously chose to put some energy towards something that was going to benefit you. And because you did it, because you came to that conclusion from a level that was above thinking, which is where all our creativity flows. I think that's important to point out, because it's like, well, if you're not thinking, how did you come up with that? When we rise above the level of thinking, that's our space of creativity. That's where all true creativity come from. That's where inspirational thought comes from, inspirational ideas, healthy ideas that are good for us. That's where they come in. So that's where you came from, that information. And then you directed your energy in a conscious way towards something positive.
See, I think that's very interesting, because the part that I was going to say was I didn't think that I got above. I thought I just went back to the level of thinking.
No, no, you went
Interesting.
to the right, because and that's why you chose something. That's why you chose something that worked. Because if you just would have stayed in a level of thinking, you would have obsessively worked in an unhealthy way. You would have been like, what's a better way for me to, I'm wasting time playing video games and watching The Office. Okay, work's good. Obsess about work. Okay, work. And you would have dove into work, and it wouldn't have been healthy. It would have been as unhealthy as watching freaking video games, because it would have been unconscious, and it would have been busy, and it would have been going 90 miles an hour just as another tool to distract you.
I actually feel in a really strange, it's strange to say this because of how bad things have been. I actually feel more balanced right
Right.
now.
This is
That
what happens when you rise above the level of thinking.
because I'm
And
going like I'm gonna work, and I'm gonna focus on family stuff when I can focus on family stuff and when I need to, and as much as I need to. But I'm also going to try to work, and then I'm also going to relax and dumb down every once in a while, because this is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stress. Like, you
right, you
know,
can unplug
I
sometimes,
gotta,
just
yeah,
needlessly.
yeah.
But
But it's been a really nice balance of everything.
and that's because you've been
While
doing
being scared out of
spiritual
my
work.
mind, while being scared out of my mind for sure. But yeah,
Well, yeah, but this is what happens when you live spiritually. Like every one of my clients, every single one of my clients has moments of where they're talking to me and stuff like this comes up, and they just handle situations better. They just, like, in recovery, they say you handle situations that used to baffle you. That's the wording that they use. And the reason they use that is because the whole program of recovery is based on a change of perspective, which is what spirituality is. It's just a change of perspective. So what happens is when you're looking at things, when you stop functioning from a different perspective, from a healthier perspective, from more of a spiritual way of living, what happens is you start handling situations that used to baffle you, because you just fall into conscious thought. You start, see, this is why. So I say this to my clients. I say it all the time, and sometimes it sounds counterintuitive, but I tell people, you don't need a life coach. You don't need me. You don't need anybody else. Nobody does. Nobody needs a life coach. So because what happens is we're stumbling towards who we're supposed to be anyway. So if you open and you try, eventually you're going to find yourself. You can awaken spiritually if you just try, you will land. I mean, I did it. I didn't have somebody. I mean, I had people guiding me like right in the beginning, and then nobody for a long period, and then but I mean, I went through long periods where I didn't have help, and I got there. It's just what a life coach does is it speeds it up. You don't meander and try to figure all this stuff out. And what can take you 6 years, you can learn in 6 months. I know it. I've experienced it as a life coach, and I've experienced with somebody life coaching me. So there are huge benefits. But what's cool is we are, when we're putting effort towards our self growth, we are leaning in the right direction. And this type of thing starts happening more and more often. We start taking healthy action and we start doing healthy things for us without even fully understanding it. Like, you didn't fully understand that you were rising above the level of thinking when you weren't like, oh, I'm going to rise above the level of thinking. And then I'm going to figure out what to do, and then it'll be perfect. And then I'll take positive action and be balanced. Like, you didn't go through that, but you did it anyway. And that's because you're leaning in the direction of personal growth.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to talk about that and see, so we kind of break down that thought process, and hopefully it helps somebody. Like, hopefully somebody that's listening to this, if they're, because I'm sure that someone listening to this will have gone through or is going through a hard time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're
I'm
on the
positive.
planet,
I'm
if they're on the
positive of
planet,
it.
they're probably going through a hard time or will.
Yeah, and to hear you talk about, the way to try to deal with that stuff is very nice. And so I think that it's good and it's beneficial for more than just me right now, and it's very helpful for me at this moment.
Yeah, well, and when we understand it, we can duplicate it. So now that you understand it, you can duplicate it and you can
Yeah.
do it more often. So this is why meditation is so important, just to have a daily practice. It's like, I was telling somebody a story the other day where I was getting a small inpatient surgery years ago, and they were like, and I meditated regularly, and they kept taking my blood pressure at multiple points, and they're like, you're like you're and they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. And they take my blood pressure and they're like, you're really like okay. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, but your blood pressure hasn't moved a digit. Like, you are exactly as calm. You were calm when you walked in here, and you're just as calm now. I'm like, well, yeah, I meditate. I mean, that's one of the things. And then during the procedure, since I was awake, it was an inpatient. All of a sudden, I got into my head for a little bit. And I'm like, oh, I'm here, and I don't like this. And I could feel some of them working on me, and I didn't like that feeling. So I got into my head, and all of a sudden somebody looked up at me and was like, oh crap, he's white as a ghost. Like, I was ready to go out, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, hold on, we have to stop. And I'm like, well, what happens if you stop? They're like, well, you'll have to come back and we'll have to finish. I'm like, screw that. That ain't happening. So I just says, just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I was like, just give me a minute and let me see if I can reel this in. So I just relaxed and I started focusing on my breathing. And I was just like, everything's fine. It's okay. And whoom, my blood pressure dropped right back down. My, color came back in my face. I was fine. I was like, okay, go ahead. And they're looking at me like, how'd you do that? I was like, I don't know. I meditate regularly. I'm more in control of myself because of that.
Right.
This is one of the benefits of meditating. So it's when we break that spinning wheel and stop the momentum multiple times a day, then it picks back up, and then we stop it. Then it picks back up and we stop it. What happens is we regain the control over stopping our mind that we lost. We're supposed to be able to stop our mind. Like, people don't even know that, it's like it runs. So like, our mind is a tool. It's not us. We're supposed to use our tool. We're supposed to be able to be in control of the tool. We're supposed to be able to tell it to stop when we want it to stop, and most people are incapable of doing that. And we've lost control over the tool that's supposed to be serving us. So when we regain that control over it by rising above the level of thinking through meditation or through breathing, or just doing it for a couple seconds on a regular basis, it enhances our life. And if we're looking at our life, and if we get calm and rise above the level of thinking and and from there we start looking for solutions to our problems, that's the space of creativity. That's where we can connect to divine wisdom. And that sounds like, ooh, connecting to divine wisdom. We all do it. We all do it. You know, it's like, who sings that song? I don't know. I can't think of it. I'll stop thinking and it'll come to me. When we stop thinking and information comes to us, that's not thinking. That's a space of creativity. That's where information can drop in, you know. So it's more of a relaxed state where creative information can drop in.
That's why people
So,
go on walks and take a shower and stuff like that. And that's
and
when they,
that's how people can write whole symphonies at one sitting, and songs and poetry and
yep,
books, and it's and paint. This is where all creativity comes from, and we all have that capability to some degree. So it's about quieting that mind on a consistent basis, and just being for a little bit, you know, every once in a while. It enhances our lives in so many ways, of course, consciously, and it puts us back in the driver's seat of our own life consciously, but it also helps us unconsciously, like we saw with your example, and countless others.
well, that'll do it for today.
That'll do it.
Yeah,
That was a good podcast. I like that one.
yeah, me
There
too.
was, you know, this is something that I bring up now and then. I've been trying to keep notes, and I was like, oh, that'd be a good podcast. And but you know, I never know how it's going to go or where it's going to go. So
Right.
so I'm just as surprised as all the listeners how wonderful that turned out.
When you said when you said we're gonna do this one today, I went okay, and then like as I pointed to you to start talking because we were recording, I was like, I have no idea where this is gonna go. I have no
Good.
idea if this is a good episode or not, and it was great. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, and I never plug anything for myself on this show. I'm actually
Well,
going to
today you're going
now.
to.
Yeah. You can check out the first episode of my podcast, Own Your Life, anywhere you find this podcast, wherever you're listening to this podcast. Glenn is my first guest.
You.
We're going to talk about his story and how he became a life coach and the commonalities that he finds in working with people all over the world, and a little bit about you know, how we started working together. So I'm really excited to share that with everybody, and hopefully you know, people get a lot of value out of that. Glenn, you have so many different things right now. I'm really excited about the book.
Yeah, check out the book everywhere. Down to Earth: The Spiritual Guides to a Happy Human Experience. We're here having a human experience, so we might as well make it a happy one. So get the book anywhere online, digital or paperback versions, you know, Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. I'll, you know, just look around. It's out there. If you're having trouble, contact me.
Yep.
We'll figure out a way to get it to you.
And you can find the show and Glenn is taking life coaching clients. So, you know, glennambrose.com.
At the moment, I'm taking a few life coaching clients, and so reach out for that. And yeah, there's blogs, and you know, check out the website. There's just so much. There's so much free content out there. Sign up for my email list. You get free video versions of five questions with Glenn. And yeah, just put some energy in a direction of this, and you're going to open up to all kinds of information and helpful stuff. So, and thanks for listening, everybody. Go check out Ben's podcast, and we will talk at you soon.